All right, IED, we're going to be doing activity 2.1.3, part 2. We're going to be taking this selfie stick and we're going to be assembling it together using all of the different parts that have been made available to us. And we're going to be using Onshape for this since this is a time when there's a lot of school closures and things like that. The downside about using this activity is that if you follow the directions inside this, they're set up for Fusion 360, and not a lot of us are actually using Fusion 360. Whenever it has a part to be able to download, that is really easy to download the Fusion 360 file and just get everything loaded up. However, to get this in Onshape, you have to do a little bit of exporting and importing. So what I'm going to do is this selfie stick parts are available as a document that is made public that you can share. So I'll make a link of this in the bottom, and if you click on that link, you should be able to find this document that has all of these parts already loaded up into it, and you can just jump straight into it from there. You don't have to individually find all of these parts and then load them up. Since we're having such trouble keeping everybody in school, it's going to be really hard to individually find out these nuanced details of having to load every part. So use that to your advantage and jump straight into it with this. And let's get down to the heart of the lesson, which is to actually use these assemblies and limit the degrees of freedom to create an assembly that will function essentially. So we're going to try this piece by piece, and Onshape is a little bit different when it comes to making assemblies. I'm used to Inventor, so this is going to take a little bit of time for me. My advice to you, especially if this is your first time making an assembly, is don't get super frustrated. If you're using a Chromebook, this is going to take a lot of time to be able to zoom in and load and try to get everything just in the right spot. There's going to be a lot of delicate mouse movements, so take everything slow and be ready to undo things whenever that does happen. Ready? I think I'm ready. Here we go. Let's try this. We're going to start with the bottom of our selfie stick, and we're going to move this piece. Actually, I don't want to move this piece at all. I want it to actually stand still. So if I want this piece to not move, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click Fix. This automatically removes all degrees of freedom, and you can check and make sure that this is actually fixed in place because there is a little symbol that shows up on the left side and it says part is fixed. Good so far. This is pretty easy at the current moment. Then I'm going to look at the next part and I'm going to say, okay, well, I want this stick part. Let's see. This stick part is going to be assembled into the tube, and I want the tube to be able to have this bar slide up and down. So I'm going to look at these different constraints or these different mates, and we're going to pick the one that has the right degrees of freedom. If I pick the fasten mate, that's going to remove all degrees of freedom, and that's not really going to work for us because I want my bar to be able to move up and down and slide. And then a lot of people think that the revolute mate is the one to go, but that allows the rotational degree of freedom in one direction, but it locks everything else. So it'll only be able to rotate one direction. We don't want this. We want our selfie stick to be able to slide. So we're going to use the slider mate. So I'm going to click the slider mate button, and here's where the true kitten punching begins. So if you think that it was easy thus far, that's fine. And the concept is easy, it's just actually clicking on the things isn't quite so much. So we're going to need to click, and notice how, here's what's happening. Go ahead and zoom in on that part, and you'll be able to see these like little joint positions come into play. And you can also notice how that one time it's pointing downwards and the other time it's pointing upwards. You want to try at all times to get these pointing upwards. If it ends up pointing downwards, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's just that your parts may end up flipped. They may end up flipped anyway, but I'll show you how to actually fix that should it happen. So I'm going to click the top part and I'm going to make sure that this axis is pointing up, the little blue axis. And I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to go down to my bottom part of the rod, and I'm going to do the same thing down here. This one was a lot easier. It looks like that's going to click into place. So whenever I click, that one's going to vanish, but if I go back and look at the original position, these two are now kind of stuck in place to each other. Now I'm going to go ahead and click the green check mark just to kind of show you a couple of things. Um, this slider bar moves up and down now, but this is not really how things actually go, because if I take this bar and I move it up, this is just going to like yeet out of the tube, and that's hopefully not how you want your selfie stick to work. Also, likewise, if you push it down, it's going to jump down further into it, which is probably not the way that you want it to work either. So we're going to need to edit this a little bit. So if we want to edit our assembly, our mate features, we're going to go over here, and if you notice that up on the top there's a list of the parts, and then over on the side there's the mate features. So for slider 1, I can right click on it and just hit edit, and we can add some limits. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Right now there's no maximum limit and there's no minimum limit. So we may have to play around with these numbers to make sure that it actually works out the way that we want it to. So I'm going to go to the front view and let's try this out. I think that the place where it is right now is right where it begins. I do believe that is the minimum. So I'm going to put 0 in for the minimum, and then for the maximum, we're going to go down 8 inches. So let's try -8, and I may end up having to put that backwards. So if I click on this, let's see, it's coming up red, so that might have been a bad idea. Let's just try 8 instead. Okay, it's much more happier with that. So let's try 8 inches, and let's see what happens. I may have to go back in here and fix it. So if I click this, it should be able to go down, and it does. But there is an upper limit. Since I have it set to 0, it shouldn't actually yeet out of the top. So I'm trying this and it's not yeeting out of the top. And then whenever I push it down, it's only able to go down about this far. So it looks like I can try to make it go a little bit further. Probably should have paid a little bit more attention to the dimensions, but that's probably just me being dumb. Looks like I can go about, I don't know, 3 more inches. So let's change that 8 to 11. So I'm going to click edit, and let's make this 8 11 inches, and I'm going to click the green check mark, and let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to push that down. It goes down much further. I think that's reasonable. Okay, so mission accomplished for that part. So congratulations, you have made your first mate, and this was a slider mate. Okay, next one that we need to do is we're going to have to take the next piece, which I believe is this one. This one is called the stick adapter. This one adapts your stick, turns it from a stick to something else, the selfie part. We're going from the stick part to the selfie part. So in this case, I really don't want this one to move or rotate around at all. So we're going to use the fasten mate, and we're going to fasten these two things onto each other. And it looks like the end has this little connector piece. So we're going to attach this part of the connector to this part of the connector. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to zoom in. I'm going to click fasten, the first one that's available to us. I'm going to click fasten mate, and I'm going to make sure that I get to this hole. I'm going to try to make it point out. Is this going to go in? No, no. I'm going to try again. There, don't move. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one, and then I'm going to let it load. Okay. You have to be real careful what you're clicking on with this. And then I'm going to go up to the top. And then let's see here. This was a hole, so I'm willing to bet that if I click on this, it's going to connect together and completely and totally upside down. Oh man. So it's very easy to fix. There's a flip option, so we can flip our primary axis. Whenever we flip it, it's going to come into place right there. Now also notice that I didn't click on the inside of the hole, so there's this little extra part hanging out. So I can add an offset, and that offset will actually help me to move this further down. So the Z direction, I want my offset to be, let's try -1 inches. I'm going to hit enter. Oops, that's the wrong way. Let's try +1 inches. Whoa, way too much. Let's try 1/2 inch. A little bit too much still. Let's try 1/4 inch. Too far. Let's try 0.3. Okay, 0.4. 0.35. 0.375. Oh, perfect. So we're going to do 0.375 inches. I'm going to click the green check mark, and now I have this part fastened in to the second part. This will not rotate at all. However, since it is connected, I should be able to click and drag it, And whenever I click and drag it, since this is fastened to the other one, this part of the selfie stick should be able to move up and down. Okay, so these are the first two fasteners that we've got for our setup, but this video is already starting to get kind of long, so I'll make the next part where we make our next fastens to it. So we have made the slider fasten, or the slider mate, and then we've also made the fasten mate. And once we get those done, congratulations, we are one step closer to having our assembly completely done. Y'all have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later.